5,000 men and women, 90 aircraft, one steel city stretching over 1,000 feet, moving through open ocean without ever stopping. One job on that ship has a maximum safe daily exposure limit of 8.9 seconds. And the sailors doing that job work 12 to 16-hour shifts. There are people sleeping in bunks right now, just feet below a flight deck where jets launch at full power. None of this is in any recruiting brochure. This is the real story of life aboard a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. And here is the thing. The deeper you look into how these sailors actually live, the more your respect for them grows. Because there are things happening on these ships that most Americans have never been told. Some of it is incredible. Some of it is troubling. All of it is real. Stay with us, because what is coming next will genuinely change how you see the U.S. Navy. Introduction. The U.S. Navy operates 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers, the most powerful fleet of floating air bases ever built by any nation in human history. When people picture a carrier, they see the jets, the raw power, the controlled chaos on deck. That image is accurate, but it only captures about 10% of what life on that ship actually looks like. The other 90%, the part that never makes the news and never gets talked about at dinner, is exactly what we are covering today. The scale. A Nimitz-class or Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier carries up to 5,000 sailors and air wing personnel, not people passing through, but people living, working, eating, and sleeping on one ship for sometimes 9 straight months. The ship stretches over 1,000 feet, it runs on nuclear power, and does not need refueling for over 20 years. The flight deck alone covers 4.5 acres, and directly underneath that deck, just feet below where jets are launching at full afterburner, sailors sleep in bunks stacked 3 high. Since 2024, the U.S. Navy officially extended average carrier deployment lengths from 6 months to 8 or 9 months. That means the men and women aboard are away from their families for the better part of a full year, in high-stress, high-tempo environments with very little downtime between missions. The carrier never stops. There is no weekend, no quiet shift. It runs on a 24-hour cycle, and every person on board has a role in keeping that machine alive. The pilots get most of the attention. But for every pilot in a cockpit, there are dozens of sailors whose names you will never know, doing jobs that are just as critical and far more dangerous than most people realize. And one of those dangers is hiding in plain sight. The noise. Every sailor who works on or near the flight deck faces one of the most serious occupational health hazards in the entire armed forces. Not enemy fire. Not equipment failure. Noise. Sound levels on the flight deck reach 150 decibels during jet launch operations. A rock concert hits around 110. At 150, the acoustic pressure causes immediate physical pain and permanent, irreversible ear damage. Here is the number that should stop you cold. A sailor wearing full double hearing protection reaches their maximum safe daily noise exposure in exactly 8.9 seconds on that deck during active operations. 8.9 seconds. And these men and women work 12 to 16-hour shifts in that environment. A peer-reviewed study found that 93% of carrier personnel monitored exceeded the safe 24-hour noise exposure limit, including during off-duty hours. Even the sleeping areas directly below the flight deck were too loud for proper auditory recovery during rest. That means sailors go to sleep in spaces still too loud for their ears to heal from the damage done during the shift they just finished. The long-term result is documented. Approximately 25% of flight deck sailors develop permanent hearing loss or tinnitus. 1 in 4. That comes from U.S. Navy and academic research, not speculation. And this is almost never discussed publicly. Did you know the U.S. Navy considers noise one of the top occupational health threats for carrier sailors? Did this surprise you? Drop your answer in the comments. Sleep. Sleep deprivation on an aircraft carrier is not a comfort problem. It is a readiness and safety crisis. Sailors work 10 to 15 hours daily. Their sleeping racks, called coffin lockers by the crew, are roughly the size of a large suitcase, stacked 3 high in shared rooms with dozens of other sailors. No natural light. No windows. No way to tell if it is 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning. A 2024 study from the Naval Postgraduate School tracked 873 sailors underway on U.S. Navy warships. Researchers described a shipboard stressor complex, the combined effect of sleep deprivation, disrupted body clocks, rotating shifts, constant noise, job stress, and loneliness, all hitting a sailor simultaneously every single day of deployment. The findings were striking. These layered stressors create conditions where standard assessments for depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline show distorted results because the causes are so deeply intertwined that measuring individual damage becomes nearly impossible. And yet, they show up. Every shift, every watch, every time they are needed. Before we go further, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. The color code. On the flight deck, you cannot have a conversation with someone standing 10 feet away. Jet engines, steam catapults, and arresting cables make verbal communication physically impossible. So the Navy built an entirely different system, a visual language based on colored jerseys. Yellow jerseys direct aircraft movement and control launches. Green jerseys handle catapult and arresting gear crews. Purple jerseys, nicknamed grapes, manage all aviation fuel. Red jerseys handle ordnance, missiles, bombs, and ammunition. White jerseys cover safety observers and landing signal officers who guide pilots back aboard. Blue jerseys move aircraft around the deck. Brown jerseys belong to plane captains, sailors personally assigned to prepare each individual aircraft. Every one of these roles operates simultaneously on a 4.5-acre deck, with jets taxiing, engines at full power, and aircraft launching or recovering at a pace that can hit one every 45 seconds during surge operations. One sailor in the wrong place at the wrong moment can be fatal. The men and women in those jerseys carry that knowledge every single shift. The Internet Revolution. Here is a story that broke wide open in 2024, and almost nobody outside military circles heard about it. For decades, sailors had almost no reliable way to contact their families at sea. Slow, low-bandwidth satellite connections were reserved for mission use. A real-time video call with your family was not a regular option. The isolation was not just emotional, it was structural. Then one officer decided to change it. A U.S. Navy commander named Kevin White, serving as combat systems officer aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, began testing high-speed commercial satellite terminals on the carrier. The service he used was SpaceX's Starlink. What started as a personal mission became the Navy's official program, designated C2, Sailor Edge, Afloat, and Ashore. During the Abraham Lincoln's 2024 Middle East deployment, the results were extraordinary. The carrier transferred data at 1 gigabyte per second download speed. Over 5.5 months, 780 terabytes of data moved through the system, averaging 4 to 8 terabytes per day. That is 50 times greater than what the rest of the fleet could achieve at that time. Sailors video called their families in real time. They ordered packages online, and while delivery sometimes took a month to reach the ship, the psychological benefit was immediate. Commander White recalled asking a young sailor what she had ordered. She said she had forgotten. She placed the order so casually, the same way anyone back home would, that it had completely slipped her mind. That is what a small sense of normalcy feels like for a deployed sailor. The commanding officer of the USS Eisenhower, which returned from a 9-month Red Sea deployment in 2024, stated publicly that Wi-Fi connectivity directly contributed to higher re-enlistment rates and a measurable decrease in destructive behaviors and mental health incidents among the crew. Those are not soft benefits. Those are mission outcomes. But the U.S. Naval Institute also raised a counterpoint military leaders are now wrestling with. Real-time connectivity means bad news from home arrives instantly, mid-shift, mid-mission, with no buffer. And some commanders have noted that sailors increasingly retreat to their bunks with their phones rather than building the shipboard camaraderie that has historically defined life at sea. This tension has no easy answer. The Navy is navigating it right now. Feeding 5,000. Feeding 5,000 people, 3 meals a day, every day, for 9 months at sea is a logistics challenge most people never think about. The carrier runs multiple dining facilities organized by rank. Culinary specialists prepare tens of thousands of meals daily using food resupplied through underway replenishment, where a supply vessel pulls alongside the moving carrier at sea and transfers food, fuel, and equipment across on cables while both ships maintain speed. Neither ship ever stops. The Navy has documented across decades of research that food quality and meal culture directly impact crew performance, cohesion, and mental health. Structured special meals throughout deployment, birthday dinners, holiday meals are not just gestures. They are deliberately engineered morale tools. Every detail of life aboard a carrier, including what is on the dinner tray, is tied to readiness. The Ford class, the future. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the Navy's most advanced carrier, represents a genuine generational shift in how these ships are built. As of December 2025, the Ford was deployed with approximately 75 aircraft across 9 squadrons, including FA-18E and FA-18F Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, and F-35C Joint Strike Fighters. The Ford class replaced old steam catapults with electromagnetic launch systems and introduced advanced arresting gear, reducing mechanical maintenance demands and increasing the daily sortie rate. Crew living conditions across the ship have also been improved, and future ships coming out of overhaul will reflect decades of documented data on noise, sleep, and mental health. The Navy has publicly committed that these sailors' sacrifice, their hearing loss, their broken sleep, their years at sea, is being studied, documented, and built into the design of every carrier that follows. What do you think the U.S. military should be doing more to support carrier sailors and their families? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. This is your chance to say something that actually matters. Conclusion. The men and women aboard U.S. Navy aircraft carriers live in a world most Americans will never see. They work in noise that can destroy hearing in under 10 seconds. They sleep in spaces barely big enough to turn over. They spend 9 months separated from everyone they love. And they perform jobs that demand absolute precision and absolute commitment, every shift, every watch, every single day. They chose this. Every one of them volunteered. The next time you see a carrier group moving into a tense region of the world, remember what is underneath that flight deck. 5,000 Americans living in conditions most of us could not handle for a week, doing it for 9 months straight, quietly, professionally, and without complaint. That is what service looks like. And it deserves to be known. If this gave you a new respect for these sailors, hit the like button and subscribe. There is a lot more content like this on the way.